Warning, this podcast, website, and associated social media accounts are intended for audiences of legal drinking age. We do not advocate overconsumption or the abuse of alcohol. Never drink and drive, drink responsibly. And please remember to always take what we say with a grain of salt. After all, we are just some dudes with some brews.
We started out by crawling out from under the thumb of the man. The lovers of God with dad bods just trying to feed our fam. Go sit right there and grab a beer, you know just what to do. Throw it back, get hammered, and listen to dudes and brews.
All right, Brock, man, I appreciate you letting me come out and just talk to you a little bit. I can't believe that you remember me from FrostFest. I mean, that was 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, you must have made a good impression.
I guess, good or bad, either way, man. Like, I will say, like, out of FrostFest, I mean, it was a good environment and a good festival or event, but your light lager stood out amongst all of everything else that was there. So I said when I planned this trip to come down here, because we're hitting up not just Bentonville, we're going to hit up some stuff in Fayetteville as well.
Okay.
I said, we got to go to Bike Rack. We got to have that lager again because it's so good. So thanks for letting me come down here and talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, anytime.
So how long have you been a brewer here?
So I've been here, I actually just eclipsed my 1 year. So I started June 21st of last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Just barely. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your background? Like, did you start home brewing or?
Yeah, so I started home brewing when I was in college. I went to college at the University of Tennessee. I started that.
Volunteers, what's up?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, we're not making the baseball tournament or the baseball final championship.
Yeah.
But I guess I got to root for SEC because the SEC is all over it this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started getting interested in craft beer and home brewing when I was in college. After that, I moved back home to where I grew up. I grew up in Southern California, so you know, a lot of people think, you know, kind of one of the homes and hot spots of craft beer, you know, over the years. I grew up just north of San Diego.
Okay.
So after college, I moved back there. Ended up taking, you know, my homebrew hobby and made it a career, or at least started a career.
Started like washing kegs and stuff?
Started washing kegs and being an event rep.
Okay.
So yeah, I literally was just, you know, ground up, you know, washing kegs, filling kegs, putting orders together, and then yeah, going and serving beer at events like FrostFest and all that. Kind of worked my way up through a few different breweries in the town that I grew up in Temecula. I actually grew up in Marietta, but more people know Temecula.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, worked for a few breweries there. Ended up getting a brewing job with some great buddies of mine at a brewery called Iron Fire Brewing Company. They're well known out in that area. They make some amazing beer. Both of the owners and brewers there are just phenomenal people.
Sweet.
So, but yeah, I got my first actual brewing job with them. You know, they took a chance on me, and then after that, I moved out here to Northwest Arkansas.
So what brought you to Northwest Arkansas? I mean, if you had it, I mean, it sounds like you had it pretty good over there.
It was pretty good, but unfortunately, Southern California on a brewer's salary is not the most comfortable living.
I can understand that, yeah.
But no, I was offered a pretty amazing job at Ozark Beer Company, which is over in Rogers.
Yep.
Again, great people. Yeah, they offered me a pretty awesome brewing role over there, and yeah, I worked there for a few years. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they had some downsizing and all of that. You know, was laid off there, and then now it gets a little interesting. So then from there, I moved up to Boise, Idaho. It was at the time it was me, my wife at the time, and our 2 kids. We moved up to Boise, which my parents had moved from California up to Boise.
Okay.
So I moved up there, worked at another brewery called Sockeye Brewing Company.
Okay.
They're one of the bigger ones in Boise, one of the older kind of original ones. Worked there for a year, moved down to Southeast Florida, worked at a brewery called Civil Society in Jupiter. They make great beer. They make very good beer. They're pretty well known, at least with a lot of kind of the hype beers. They make, they make really, really good like hazy doubles, but they also make, they make a Schwartz beer that is like out of this world.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, their lager is really good.
They may have done some collaborations with something in the Dallas area.
They do a lot of collabs. A lot of collabs. I know that. We did several while I was down there.
Sweet.
And then moved back to Northwest Arkansas. Unfortunately, Southeast Florida is quite expensive as well.
Imagine.
Moved back to Southwest Arkansas. I brewed down at Fossil Cove for a few months.
Sweet.
And then was offered the head brewer job here at Bike Rack,
cool.
and kind of took over the helm here.
That is an awesome story. Just moving around all over the place.
Yeah, it's about a 10-year time frame.
Yeah.
So yeah, professionally I've been working in breweries for about 10 years now.
But is this the first brewery that you were the head brewer at?
Yeah, this is the first one that I've had, almost pretty much complete creative control.
Nice.
From grain ordering to like when beer is done fermenting and ready to transfer is pretty much everything that I do.
Sweet.
I have a couple like packaging seller guys that do a great job once I can hand it off to them.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
For sure. It's funny that you mentioned Fossil Cove, because one year I was traveling to like northern Arkansas on vacation, and I was like, I need to stop and get beer. Fayetteville's a college town. I'm sure I can find a place there, and their artwork is what stood out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's the reason why I stopped and grabbed a beer.
Yeah.
And it's because of them I say thank you, because I followed them on Instagram and found out about FrostFest, and that's
very cool.
how
Very cool.
it's a small world you come to find in the end.
Yeah, no,
So I
FrostFest.
thank them for that.
They do a great job with FrostFest every year. Everyone down there is super cool. Ben does a great job at making sure quality product gets
Right.
released for sure.
So going back a little bit, you said you started home brewing. Did you start out with like extract batches, or did you just dive into all grain?
I went directly into all grain brewing. I never used any type of extract, liquid, dry, nothing. I actually, the first time I ever brewed was with a buddy in Knoxville, who he'd kind of volunteer worked in several breweries, this and that. So he had a pretty nice little homebrew setup. But literally the first beer I ever brewed was a 1 barrel, so 31 gallon, a butternut squash like brown ale.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so because it was around that time of year where like pumpkin beers,
Right.
were about to come out, and I remember this so well. We called him Ratchet. He was part of like a bottle club, like a beer sharing club that we were all part of, and he hated pumpkin beers, so he made a butternut squash beer.
Okay. Hey, a brown ale is a good base for it.
Yeah.
I know Dogfish Head, their pumpkin ale is a brown ale base.
Yeah.
So it's a good base for I guess a pumpkin is a type of squash. So
It's a gourd,
squash, gourd beer, holiday style. Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Yeah, the malty and kind of earthy in the brown mixed with, kind of the sweet earthiness of pumpkin squash, whatever. I guess it works pretty well together.
No, it sounds great. So you were brewing with him on 1 barrel systems.
Yeah, so he had he had some big old Blickman kettles.
Okay.
That
I do 5 gallons, and I think that's a lot.
that was it was really interesting, but I was like, oh, so this is home brewing.
Yeah.
No, that was definitely not like normal home brewing.
That's micro, like. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was getting.
What do they call them? Macro?
Nano.
Yeah, the nanos.
Yeah, it was. It pretty much was about the size of like a nano brewery.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've seen some of that where they'll do double batches on one barrel systems on those nano breweries.
Yep.
So what size system do you guys have here?
So we have a 15. It's pretty oversized. So yeah, it's 15 barrels. I actually yield, kind of depends on the beer, but I yield about 21 to 22 barrels out of each batch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in all of your brewery hopping, I'm going to call it, is there any kind of recipe that you developed and actually brought over to Bike Rack to say, hey, this is something that I did, we need to start doing this?
So in the industry, at least like the way that I kind of see it is most breweries, when you're working there and brewing there, if you're writing recipes, it's technically like their property now.
Okay.
I've learned.
So it's like songs, like the record label owns the song.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, like, I mean, obviously you could take that recipe and go and make it at another brewery, and who's gonna know? I mean,
Right.
And obviously with that recipe on a different brew house, different system, it's probably gonna be different.
Sounds like there's unspoken rules though.
Yeah, there's some rules. You kind of just don't take recipes. I mean, obviously you learn things over the years. I learned a lot at every brewery I've ever worked at.
Okay.
I've learned, different techniques, different, recipe development, little things. So when I came into Bike Rack, I took kind of some of the things I've learned over the years, and yeah, just kind of ran with that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that sounds like the best way to do it. So they already had like a core. Whenever you started here, they already had a core lineup.
Yeah, so we have like our flagship lineup, which is actually so the lager that you're drinking, which we call beer. So that's one of them. We have an amber ale. We have our Slaughter Pen IPA, which is more of like a traditional, almost like more West Coast style IPA. So it's actually clear.
Okay, cool.
There's a little like it's not super blonde. It's it has a little bit of like caramel malt character or like look to it. Not much, just a tiny bit. But like Slaughter Pen. Let's see, and then we have like our golden ale.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of our flagships. The first beer I ever made when I came in, it's called Dinos and Unicorns. It's a hazy, like New England IPA. I named it for my kids because I have two kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. She loves unicorns, he loves dinos, and the best thing I could come up with was something to kind of glorify them without putting their faces on a beer label.
Right. No, I like that. You got to pay tribute.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there? So are you when you create a new recipe, do you come up with the name, or do you have like a marketing team that kind of does that?
We kind of just throw rice at a wall. Everyone kind of just because I'm usually terrible at coming up with beer names. I'm just notoriously horrible at it. I overthink them, and I'm like, oh no, this would be cool, and then the next day I'm like, no, that's stupid. We have a great crew here. We have people that can come up with good beer names. We have people that can come up with great artwork. We kind of do it as a team.
Okay,
we do a lot of stuff as a team around here for sure.
Whoever called this beer did a great job.
I
like that.
That was named before I came around. But yeah, I like that one also.
And I noticed on your menu that you guys have beer, but then you have a couple of different variations with like different fruit or whatnot.
Yeah, so we have a strawberry lemonade version of it right now, and we have a blueberry lemonade version of it right now. So I'll touch on the strawberry, and then I'll come back to the story behind the blueberry. But the strawberry lemonade was actually kind of a joke when I first made it. I made a single keg of it, and I like Natter Days.
Okay.
So Natural Light, Natter Days, the strawberry lemonade, the pink and yellow can, they look cool. So I was kind of, making a joke and being like, hey, like I'm going to take a stab at Natter Days. Did it. We sold that keg in a day.
Oh, dang.
And we've been selling, that's been our number 2 selling beer since.
Really?
So so we've been selling a whole bunch of it.
So keeping that on tap.
Yeah, so that one's not going anywhere.
Nice.
That one's been really good. And it's funny because I have buddies in other breweries, obviously, that they've done kind of joke and gag beers before, and they've taken off, and they're still sitting on their boards, years later. So that's the story of the strawberry lemonade, and then the blueberry lemonade. Basically the same. It's the same beer, just with blueberries instead of strawberries.
Okay.
But we did it with a local berry farm. It's called The Berry Farm.
Oh, cool.
We did it for a festival that they're doing this Saturday, tomorrow, where you can actually go and hand pick your own blueberries.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so it's like kind of they open the farm up. Everyone can go pick blueberries. They have a whole festival. They have events, and we'll be selling the beer out there. Whole bunch of stuff for kids. But yeah, they got with us, and that's kind of what we came up with. And then they actually helped. They came in and helped us can it and all
nice.
that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that aspect of like helping out like other local businesses
Yeah.
and farms and whatnot. So are you always the face? Are you the one that goes around to all the festivals and pours?
No, I've literally, I think Frost Fest is the only festival I've done.
Nice.
So yeah, you just came to the right one. Right? No, we have a phenomenal like kind of sales brand ambassador. Her name's Christine.
Yeah.
You met her earlier. She's usually the one to go out to events and stuff like that. But yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah, I like the laws here in Arkansas are a little bit better than I would say what they have in Texas. Because in Texas, at festivals, you can't have anybody that's at the brewery pour beer at festivals.
Oh, okay.
It has to be volunteers.
Ah.
So like you can be there to like talk, but most people don't want to sit there and do nothing.
Oh yeah.
So I really enjoyed being able to talk to somebody that is hands-on with it, even if there are a sales rep. Like that's better than nothing. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You guys.
No, I didn't know Texas. I've never been to a festival in Texas, quite honestly. Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everywhere I've lived and worked and done festivals, I've been able to pour our own beer. So yeah, I can't think of anywhere. I think there was one festival that I went to in California where they wouldn't let us pour, but I think it had more to do with like licensing than it did with anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't think of anywhere.
So do you have, what is your R&D process like? Do you still use a one barrel system to do R&D or?
No, we really don't have any type of R&D. We don't have a small batch system, anything like that. I'll usually write a recipe and we'll run with it. So yeah, I mean, and it's usually on a full batch scale.
Nice.
And we haven't had any go bad or anything like that yet.
I love the confidence. Your confidence is awesome.
I mean, I think I've been doing this long enough. I should be able to do it.
Right. No, I mean, you would expect, but I mean, granted, I haven't been brewing for very long, maybe 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
And it's all small batch stuff, but my brain comes up with ideas that trying to actually put that to fruition is completely different. So that's why I'm like, some of the stuff my brain comes up with, I may not be able to, it doesn't turn out the way I expect it to.
The nice thing about homebrewing also is on that smaller system, you can be a little more bold.
Yeah.
You can go a little crazier than, I mean, I could brew like half batches. I mean, this brew house is great. It's really easy to use, but it also is very, very functional. I could brew much smaller batches if I really wanted to. So I just haven't come around to having a beer where I'm like, I don't think we could sell all of this beer.
Right.
You know?
So one thing that caught my eye when I came back here is you have all of your fermenters named.
Yeah.
Who named these? And can you tell me the story behind this?
So I don't know all of like the full story of why they were named what they are. I know they're obviously all musicians. I know our majority owner.
I did not know that Doc Holliday was a musician.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is weird because I should know that because where we're from in Denison, Texas, we actually have a brewery called Say When.
Okay.
Based on his catchphrase in Tombstone. And we do a Doc Holliday Fest every year. So I did not know that he was a musician.
I'm pretty sure I want to say Doc Holliday was like an old blues musician or something like that.
Just stick with it. We're gonna stay confident.
That's what I'm going to go with because every other one is a musician.
That makes sense.
I know we have several investors, and I think like the investors, our majority owner, I think they all kind of got together and they were able to name them what they wanted to.
Okay. I'm sure that you guys could call these out. Like, this is what's in Etta James right now. This is what's in...
Pretty much. I usually just throw numbers out because so I'll just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But also, because I'm doing everything on this side, I usually don't even have to say anything. I have a spreadsheet that everyone...
When you say that you do everything, you're the only brewer here then?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
On a 15-barrel system, that's a lot of work for one guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can be. Luckily, we're not, our production numbers they're not tiny, but they're also not huge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm able to do it all myself pretty easily.
And this is just coming from a guy that's never brewed in a commercial system. So.
I mean, again, over the years, like 5 years ago, probably not.
Okay, so you've learned efficiencies and things like that over time.
Exactly.
And whatnot. Okay, so the other 9 years that you spent doing all that other stuff wasn't for nothing.
Exactly.
You learned a lot.
Exactly. You learn things over the years, and the nice thing about working in several breweries is you learn different things different ways, and then you can come up with the way that you like to do it. So I might blend a couple different ways of doing something, and I like it that way more. There's not one, like a definitive one way to do everything in a brewery. Your CIP process, depending on what chemicals you like, depending on there's a whole bunch of different stuff. Just doing little tweaks with fermentation. So starting fermentation at 1 temp, dropping it down a little bit, bringing it back up for derest. There's all these different little things that you can do to get different nuances out of beers and all that. It's nice to learn from multiple people, especially multiple people that have been in the industry for a long time.
Nice. No, it sounds like you've absorbed a lot of that and brought it here to Bike Rack. So,
for sure.
Man, this has been awesome. Your journey has been long and crazy, but I'm glad that you ended up here.
I'm glad to be settled down and back in Northwest Arkansas, and I'm not planning on going anywhere for a long time now.
So people need to come out here to Bentonville, come to Bike Rack, and check it out. The beer's been phenomenal, but you want to grab another beer and real geek out on it?
Yeah, we can go talk. Cooking also, but this is the camaraderie and the family kind of aspect of it for the most part is pretty solid.
Yeah. You mentioned you love cooking. People ask me about when they don't know nothing about beer. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm thinking about getting into it. Blah, blah, blah. How long does it take? This and that. And basically, I told them literally, it's like baking from scratch. It's all fun and games, the end product is great, but you're cooking. And what happens when you're finished cooking? Somebody's got to clean all that shit up. And it's no fun.
And that's the best part about this, is it's so much easier to clean all this stuff than it ever was cleaning my homebrew stuff back in the day. Like trying to pick up a 10-gallon pot full of grain, no thank you.
Right.
I don't ever want to do that again.
And you shouldn't have to.
Right. Yeah, now I just get to open that manway up and turn the rakes on, and it pushes all the grain out for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Because I see guys that still use it looks like a tamper almost.
Yeah, there's one over there. I've got one. Blue.
Just scrape it out.
Just to make sure, because some grain does get kind of stuck in areas, but that thing. So I have mash rakes that mixes the mash.
Yeah.
And then it has a squeegee that I can put down when I'm graining out.
Nice.
So it literally squeegees all the grain out also.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty
so
sweet.
Easy.
It's
that's the way to do it.
For sure.
Like I said, the efficiencies that you guys have learned.
Exactly.
So what did you go ahead and pour for me today?
So this is called the Walkabout. It's basically like a hazy session IPA, hazy pale ale.
Okay.
It's only 4.2% alcohol. Nice. So it's one of those where I originally made it as a collab with Glacier Hops Ranch.
Okay.
They're up in Montana, and they gave me some new hops that they had put together and everything and grown up, and we made the initial batch with those hops. This is kind of the second rendering of it. It's a little different recipe than the first one. Same grain bill, but hops wise, it's a little bit different. I added some other stuff. This has so the hops from Glacier, they're called Aroma.
Okay. I think I've seen them.
Yeah, you probably have. I know they're kind of all over.
Okay.
But yeah, they were generous and sent me a box of them and said, hey, as long as you answer some questions for us, we'll give you a 44-pound box of hops for free.
Sweet.
Here you go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so this one I had a little bit of that aroma left, so I used that, and then there's some Galaxy and some Waiheke.
Okay, cool.
So some Southern Hemisphere, New Zealand, and Australian hops as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you being here.
So you said this is a little bit different from the first variation. Did you just change hops?
Just change the hops. It's the same exact recipe as everything else.
So is this going to become a series of some kind where you're just going to change out hops with whatever you have available? Or?
It can. I'm not really sure exactly where we're going to go with it, but more than likely it'll be something like that. I'm kind of using it as like an R&D for moving hops that we don't normally use, maybe moving them into other IPAs, double IPAs, things like that.
So you said Aroma, Galaxy, and YET.
YET.
Now, can you tell me Aroma? What should I be getting out of that? Because I'm not super familiar with it.
They're all really similar. They're all going to be super tropical, citrusy, as you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
Luckily, with it being a really light-bodied beer, the hops really show.
Really shine.
So yeah, I mean everything's more on that tropical. I know, like when it was a little higher aroma, I got like some stone fruit, like peachy nectarine.
Yeah.
But I think the Galaxy and all that kind of balances it out.
Yeah.
Actually, looking at the recipe, a little bit of Citra went into the Whirlpool also.
Oh,
so,
nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think I just had that Citra just to bring the IBUs up a little bit because it was like super low IBU with almost everything going in Whirlpool.
What's it sit at right now?
I think it's like 30, I want to say 35 off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I've done a few different IPAs as of late, and I'll have to look at the latest one. I just did like a milkshake IPA as an experiment, and I want to say it's like 40 IBUs, and this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This seems hoppier than what I brewed.
And that's the thing is like measuring IBUs, it can kind of get hard, exactly. And like, it kind of like, I have spreadsheets I use to make recipes. I have different, software to use, and sometimes I'm just like, you know what, like, I'm just going to throw this in here and we're going to run with it.
Right.
Cause if you're really low, like, I think most people say like the palate can't really taste, differentiate anything under like 10 IBUs or something like that, and anything over like 80 IBUs.
I'm glad that you've said this because there was a time where there was like a war of who can have the highest IBUs, and I'm like, one of the local brewers put out a beer with 100 IBUs, and I'm like, why would you do this?
Yeah.
I tried it, but I was like, get out of here with this. Like, there's a point where I go, you need to make a good beer, but trying to like be as weird and like different than everybody else. Just make a good quality beer. Yeah,
obviously where I grew up, where I started professionally brewing, it was kind of, the West Coast IPA was known as this 80, 90, 100 IBU, just hops in your face.
Yeah.
But like bitter bombs also.
Yeah.
But also like the OG West Coast IPA had some crystal malt and stuff in like that in it, so that the sweetness from that crystal malt kind of balances some of that bitterness.
Yeah.
Where I've made beers that are technically 120 IBUs and 110 IBUs, and you're putting so many hops and so much vegetable matter into your boil and your Whirlpool and all that stuff that like, honestly, it kind of makes a mess sometimes.
I can imagine.
And I'm a pretty efficient and pretty frugal brewer as well. So like, I don't want to just throw money away when I'm making beers.
Oh, 100%. When you said making a mess, do you guys use a lot of pellet or whole cone?
We use all pellet.
All pellet. Because like this IPA that I did, I had like I had a cylinder that I put into for dry hopping.
Uh-huh.
It's, I don't know, yay big and just a little bit at the bottom. And that, when I went to pull it out, I'm surprised it didn't crack open. Those things expand way more than you anticipate them to. Normally I put them in socks and stuff, but like this time I decided to do it in this new thing because I wanted it to be suspended. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't make a mess, like it didn't crack open, but still.
Gotta try stuff out.
It's experiment on stuff. So this one here, you're calling, you said a pale ale, maybe an IPA. What would you say is the difference between a pale ale and an IPA?
So, usually,
where does it start to become?
Usually the biggest differentiation is going to be like ABV. Okay. This would be more like session pale ale or session IPA.
See, I always thought it had to do with IBUs.
I mean,
it's more bitter, I don't care what
IBUs.
the
Yeah, I mean,
ABV
IBUs
is
is definitely a factor as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've always kind of seen like session IPA and pale ale kind of together. I think pale ale sometimes you can have a little more multi-profile also. So yeah, it's kind of a gray area, at least.
About the marketability.
Yeah, and that's the thing is IPA markets much better than pale ale in most places.
It does. No, I've totally seen this, like with Indian pale lagers versus cold IPAs. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's call it an IPA.
I mean, that's just reinventing the wheel right there.
Like, are they not the same thing basically?
I mean, there's some differentiation, but not much. I mean, the whole cold IPA it's a little different on kind of fermentation profile, but for the most part, they're pretty close to the
I was
same
gonna say,
thing.
from what I've read, it seems like they're really close.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a super beer nerd.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I've made one cold IPA and it was pretty much IPL.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
Okay. What do you guys have in the works for new, like,
So let's see.
if you're willing to divulge that information?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of stuff right now. It's mainly just restocking most of our flagship stuff. I've got some lager coming up, new batch of Dinos and Unicorns that's sitting in a tank, almost ready to go. I'll be doing our first sour ever pretty soon, so we're gonna do a sour.
Kettle sour?
Yeah, kettle sour. Yeah, we'll run with kettle sour for now because I can literally just transfer my mash to my kettle and then seal it up, let it sit for a few days, and then boil it directly in there and kill everything off. So I don't have to worry about, lacto or bacteria or anything getting anywhere.
I mean, honestly, it's if you do use a yeast strain for sour, I give you props. That means that's probably what you do mostly.
Yeah.
Because you're destroying that fermenter at that point.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean,
all this is used for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least like gaskets and stuff like that. Like, I've never had a problem over the years. I've brewed sours. I've never had a problem with contamination or anything like that. I mean, everywhere I've worked, we've had really quite rigorous CIP guidelines, like cleaning guidelines, and acid and caustic and all of that. So and I mean, we're extremely clean around here. Luckily, everyone can get on that boat. So yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about it, but we're gonna go with that just because it's also kind of a quick sour.
Yeah.
And then down the road, maybe we'll fill some barrels up and we'll do some authentic sour.
So are you doing that just because that's something that you haven't done here and you're wanting to try something new out, or are you trying to like appeal to a certain market?
We get a lot of people. It's probably our number one most requested style. People
really?
come in and say, "Do you guys have a sour? Do you guys have a sour? Do you guys have a sour?" So that's basically why I'm doing it. I mean, I also
That surprises me.
yeah, I know it surprises me also. Just because I think sour was like the thing for a while.
Yeah.
And then like it's kind of dropped off some, but. Yeah, I mean, we'll do it. We'll see how it goes. We'll do some different fruit variations, things like that.
Like it surprises me that they asked specifically for a sour, because like what I've seen in my experience, and this is the only thing I have, is you have I call them lake nectars, like your Miller, Coors,
Yeah.
Bud. You guys have the beer, which is the alternative. So hey, here you go, and then they'll bring somebody with them that maybe doesn't drink beer.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, what do you have outside of beer? Well, I have something that's technically it is beer, but you're gonna get more fruit than anything. So here's a sour.
Yeah.
Somebody that comes in and says, hey, do you have sours on tap? Like, that's something that seems really odd to me.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that there's a market for it, and if
Yeah.
there is, hopefully it works out for you guys and blows up.
I hope so.
I mean, if it's any indication what I've seen in my area, there's like no way it won't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll do pretty well. I mean, if it doesn't, luckily sour beer can kind of sit in a cold, keg for a pretty long extended period of
Yeah.
time. So, we'll figure something
with
out.
the high pH and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
So, man, you guys do phenomenal beer.
Thank you.
Like, honestly, this is great. It's sessionable. You get the right amount of hops. It's not too grassy or grazy, as I like to call it. I'm more partial to the West Coast IPAs, which are typically, you get more of that malt backbone. You don't get that here because there's no crystal malts in these.
Yep.
But I like this. This is phenomenal. You did a great job.
Thank you.
I would love to see you guys continue with a series of some kind and just change up hops that are in season. I know that's a common thing because it's you got to brew what you can get a hold of sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, this is phenomenal. I appreciate the background on it, and just keep doing what you do, Brock. Man, you're a phenomenal guy, man.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming on the show and spending time with us.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to link all your stuff in the description for everybody
sure.
to check out. But if you guys are in the Bentonville, Fayetteville area, you got to come down here and check out Bike Rack Brewing.
Yeah.
So,
come on by, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
We appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of Dudes and Brews. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're on, we're on there. We have a YouTube channel, Dudes and Brews. We would love if you would subscribe there as well. If you are subscribed and you want to help us out just a little more, unsubscribe and resubscribe again. It sounds funny and stupid and kind of obnoxious, all of the subscribing and resubscribing and stuff, but it helps in these little algorithms games for like climbing the charts, because again, we are organic and we are where we are because of you guys.
Yeah, we really do appreciate your support. Shout us out. We really do love it when you guys interact with us, when you add us, mention us, put us on your stories, tag us, all that fun stuff, all the stuff the kids are doing. We like grabbing that stuff and we put it up for you guys. So we appreciate you so much. Keep having fun, drinking them brews, hanging with them dudes. Tune in next week for another episode of Dudes and Brews.